You're watching 38IZ videos. This is Val Tapia. Coming up, our guest musician today is really one of rock's premier vocalists, and the best way I can describe him is just listing some of the songs he's been responsible for creating. Shooting Star, Can't Get Enough, Ready for Love, uh, Silver, Blue, and Gold. It just list goes on and on. And right now we have a pleasure and an honor. We're speaking with none other than Mr. Paul Rodgers from Bad Company. Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Val. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. You got a lot of fans here. Can't wait for the Bad Company Lynyrd Skynyrd show on Friday, May 18th. Heck, if you could, really quick, how did this tour come together? You have toured with Skynyrd in recent years.
Oh, Lynyrd Skynyrd and Bad Company and myself go back many years. When Bad Company first came to the States, we toured with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and they were the greatest guys. They're still the greatest guys and girls in the world, actually. We love them to pieces. They're like family.
Wow. And you guys are just doing select dates, is that correct?
Well, we're doing 4 dates, I think. Yes, we're just special guesting with them, and we're very happy to do that because I think, they're one of the greatest rock and roll bands in the world, bar none. So I'm sad to see it's a farewell tour, but I mean, I think I've got a feeling that, they spent so much time on the road. They're like, road warriors, really.
Right.
They'll miss it. They'll miss it very quickly, but who can say,
Right. Okay, well, let's go start. 2018 marks literally your 50th anniversary as a recording artist. And we're going to start really quickly, go back to the beginning. Tell us how you met your bandmates that eventually would become Free. How did you meet the three of them, Simon Kirke, Paul Rodgers, and Andy Fraser? How did you guys meet?
Oh.
And little brief story on that.
Okay, well, Free began, I was in a band, a blues band. Down in London. I was playing in a blues club. It was the back of a pub, and it was called Brown Sugar, the band I was with at the time. And Paul Kossoff came up, and he came up on stage for a jam session, and this long-haired guy with flared Levi's, and he was just fantastic, I thought. And I said to him straight away, we should form a band. And so we sort of did. We took the drummer from his current band, and then we looked around. We found that was Simon Kirke, and then we found Andy Fraser, who was a perfect bass player for the unit we had, which is a 4-piece unit. And the rest is history, I guess.
Right. So to go just a couple years later, your breakthrough really came with the third album called Fire and Water, and in 1970 you guys made an appearance at arguably one of the most infamous festivals in the world, the Isle of Wight Festival. Give us little recollections of that, and what were some of the bands who were on the bill that year?
Sorry, what was the question again?
For the Isle of Wight Festival, you guys played,
yes,
Free played there in 1970, around the time Fire and Water came out.
Yes.
What was that festival like? And it was enormous.
Oh. Well, it was amazing. I mean, what can you say? It was like the Gathering of the Clans. We flew across to the stage, across the crowd in a helicopter, and we could look down and see all the people camped out down there and all the multicolors and everybody, having a great time. Mm-hmm. And it was the biggest thing that had ever happened in England that time, because it was kind of like, after Woodstock, it was a bit of the English version of Woodstock, if you like,
Right.
And it was a great honor to play there. We didn't think we'd gone down all that well, because the first bunch of rows was all media, and they were all sitting down, and they looked like they had their heads down, because they were taking notes. In those days, everybody wrote down with a pencil and a pen, right?
Right.
And so they were reviewing the show, and we didn't know that we were like reaching the crowd so much, but apparently we did. So that turned out all right.
Gotcha. And to celebrate Free, actually, last year you guys recorded a show, and that CD is going to be released in June. It's called Free Spirit, and give us a little rundown of that. It features the entirety of the music of Free.
Yeah, well, when I play solo, I do material that I've written with Free, with Bad Company, with the Firm, and blues and things like that. But this was strictly playing all of the Free catalog,
Wow.
and it was received very, very warmly. People really miss Free, particularly in England.
Hmm.
And we recorded a live DVD at the Albert Hall, which was the final show of the tour. And it all came together very well. We're very happy with the video. It really is. It really does. I mean, we can't pretend that we are Free. So that's why I call it the spirit of Free, because we do capture, between us, we capture the spirit of Free.
Right. And also on that particular concert, you guys were playing songs that the original lineup of Free had never played before. Is that correct?
Yeah, there were some songs. There was a Catch a Train. There was I Love You So. Actually, there is a wealth of material that we didn't play other than in the studio
Wow.
that is still very good material, I think. So there's room for more.
How challenging was it to reinterpret this material for today?
Well, for me, it was like putting on an old pair of jeans in a way. That your best, comfortable, most your favorite pair of jeans, because it's where I come from in every way.
Right.
And it has a lot of blues influence, a lot of soul influence, but it's British rock and roll at the same time. And the warmth of the crowd was very inspiring, and everybody played great.
How, as far as Free, they say some of the bands, if you remember, who you guys played with during that time, whether you were opening for bands or bands, who were opening for you. Can you give us a little bit of describe the time, what it was like in 1970 with Free?
Well, it was a very happening time. Actually, there was a lot of great music around, and we toured with the Who, the Small Faces, Joe Cocker, and that was normal. And we were opening the show, of course, and they were the headline bands.
Right.
But it was really nice to stand backstage and watch the Who in action.
Right.
They let us wander around backstage and just partake in the backstage vibe there. And the Small Faces too. That was Steve Marriott. They went on to be the Faces with Rod Stewart, but that was before all that time. And they were just an awesome band, and we learned so much from playing with those guys.
Wow. Yeah, our viewers love hearing stories like that, so I appreciate that little going back in time a little bit. So to go a little further now we're up to Bad Company, and between the ending of Free and then Bad Company starting, you guys had recorded a lot of the first album, which is today remains one of rock's great debuts. Give us a little background on recording that very first Bad Company album.
Oh, the first Bad Company album. Yeah. Well, I having signed up with Swan Song and Peter Grant, who was managing the biggest band in the world at the time, which was Led Zeppelin.
Right.
It was a good time for us. They had a house in the country set up for their recording, and it was very organic. You could put the drums in one room, the vocals in another room. There was a grand piano in there. And we just spread ourselves throughout this big building, and they were delayed getting into that situation. Something happened, and so Peter Grant phoned me up and said, if you get in there quickly, you can record a couple of tracks, because Led Zeppelin are delayed for a couple of weeks, and you can use the facilities. There was Ronnie Lane's mobile studio outside, which was a 24-track mobile studio, and we whipped in there. We set all our gear up, and we just rocked out, man. It was fantastic. We'd play till all hours of the day and night, and there was log fires going on, and we cooked in the kitchen, and just put everything we had down, really, actually, not just a couple of tracks.
Right. Was the transition difficult from Free to Bad Company, or did it just flow?
It did just flow. I met Mick Ralphs, and we started. I was touring with them actually, with Mott the Hoople, because he was with Mott the Hoople at the time.
Correct.
And we started to write songs together, and that's how Bad Company was formed, really, just from those songs. You know, I had Rock Steady, he had Can't Get Enough of Your Love, you know, and all the songs that eventually developed between us.
What's your, to this day, what would you say are your favorites from that record?
From the first record, I like, obviously. I think I like Bad Company. Yeah, it was a very moody song,
Right.
And I like the whole album. I think it's very it speaks of the time. You know, everybody was jamming, and everybody was, you know, getting high and just digging on the vibe, and that's what we were doing. And we just put everything down, and the result was the first album, Badco. You know.
Do you think part of the reason why the record was so well received and continues to be was the fact that really when that record came out, it's fair to say that glam rock was kind of riding high, and you guys were the antithesis of that. Could that have been part of the reason why that record has stood the test of time?
Well, you know, it might have been. I know that fashions change all the time. I mean, we've always stuck to our guns. We like to play what we feel is stripped down rock and roll, really, I guess. You know, that something that connects with the audience and that they can respond to on a bit of a deeper level, I suppose, if I can say that. You know,
Right.
you know, and it comes out of all the sweaty clubs we played in. You know, where what really matters is how well you play, not how much hair you have,
Right.
or, you know, how tight your trousers are. I mean, that's part of it, I suppose. But, you know, there was some great music came out in those days. Jeff Beck came out with the Truth album.
Right.
I mean, everybody should listen to the Truth album. It set the standard, really. It set the bar, if you like, for the next 50 years of rock and roll, because that was before Cream, before Led Zeppelin, before Jimi Hendrix hit it big. You know, he was doing this thing with Rod Stewart on the Truth album, which was still today is unbelievable. I listened to a track, Shapes of Things to Come, the other day, and it just blew my socks off. How ahead of, you know, before their time they were.
Right.
But they didn't get to be really famous because they broke up before they broke, if you like, you know.
Actually, that's a perfect lead-in, Paul. You're going to be going on a summer tour with Jeff Beck and Ann Wilson, another rock vocal powerhouse, this summer, starting in July. How did that come together? And that's literally a dream tour for many.
Well, you know, it came together as these things do, kind of organically in a way. I did the English tour with Free Spirit with the band, and we did all that and recorded the DVD. And then I said, well, I love this so much. Let's take it to America, but just a small theater tour. And then my manager came back and he said, well, look, you know, Jeff Beck wants to tour, and Ann Wilson, and so it's become now this bigger thing. You know, it's much bigger than the small theaters I had envisioned, but that's great. You know, bring it on. And it's going to be a fabulous tour.
Yes. And unfortunately, right now, that tour is not coming here. But what tour is coming here, and Paul, let me remind our viewers, Paul Rodgers, Bad Company will be coming to town with Lynyrd Skynyrd. It is Lynyrd Skynyrd's farewell tour, and that'll be on Friday, May 18th at Auction Pavilion. Tickets are available at livenation.com, going pretty quickly. So it's a big demand tour, and let's continue the conversation, Paul. Wanted to get the word out about the show right now. So.
All right, man. Actually, thanks very much. Thanks.
And really quickly, I also wanted to go further now. After the Bad Company, you left Bad Company. You a couple years later, you did a solo record first called Cut Loose. But after that, you did a record or a band called The Firm, who released 2 records. How did that come together? And what are your recollections of that?
Oh well, yeah. After Bad Company, I released. I made a studio in my house, and I recorded an album there, and I called that Cut Loose. Put that out. Atlantic Records were very kind to me. They put that out, and that was great. And then around about that same time, Jimmy Led Zeppelin, came off the road because of the sad demise of John Bonham. And so Jimmy came around to my house and my studio, and we started to write songs. And as musicians do when you put them together and close the door tight. And then we kind of, that's how the firm was formed, really. Somebody called us up and said, we're doing the ARMS tour, which is for multiple sclerosis. And we hear that you and Jimmy are in the studio. Would you like to come out and play a set for us? Because Joe Cocker's going to be there, and Eric Clapton, and all these great people. And we said, well, we've only got half an hour of music, really. And they said, that's all right. We only want you to play half an hour. And we said, well, we don't have a rhythm section. We're just noodling in the studio. Oh, we've got your rhythm section. So we ran out of excuses, really. And so off we went. We did the ARMS tour, and it was a gas, actually. Yeah.
And we're going to be playing the firm's Radioactive right after the interview, so we'll get to that shortly. But to go a little further now, actually, I want to go back as a music fan and a musician. What was the very first album you bought, and the first live concert you attended?
Oh, the first recording I bought actually was an acoustic single, Red Beans and Rice by Booker T and the MGs. That's Otis Redding's band. And then I bought Otis Blue, the album Otis Blue, which I still have the same copy of today. And I still love it just as much as, when I first bought it.
Right. What was the very first live concert you ever saw?
Pardon?
The first live concert you ever went to?
Oh, the first live concert. Well, I saw a fledgling Cream when they first came out. They came up to Stockton-on-Tees. They played there, and I saw the Yardbirds too.
Wow.
With Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton. They played at Stockton, and that's the town beside my town. I saw Rod Stewart. I saw the Four Tops. Wow. I saw some really great people, actually, up in my hometown.
Right.
They all dropped in as they passed. They were touring.
Yeah, I always like to ask artists I interview what were their first concerts, and it's always a treat for the viewers to hear what rock and roll history was like.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Steve Winwood played at the Purple Onion, and we were in there. And afterwards, he came out and just jammed on his keyboard. He played the organ and the pedals and everything.
Right.
And he was just jamming, and he was just amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
Interesting. And just a reminder to our viewers, I'm speaking with legendary vocalist Paul Rodgers of Bad Company. And Bad Company will be in town on Friday, May 18th at the Auction Pavilion. They're with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it is Lynyrd Skynyrd's farewell tour. So catch this while we can, and the tickets are on sale now. You can get them at Live Nation. Paul, do you think there's a possibility, we'll say it like that, do you think you see new Bad Company music in the future?
Well, yeah, I think we probably ought to make some new music. We've been, it would be a good idea. But a lot of things have got to come together, I think, before that happens. We need the material, we need the time, and we need the strong inclination. Right. But I think we're moving to. I'm always writing songs, and everybody's always writing songs, and so there's plenty of material around. But we're too busy actually touring at the moment. I've got so much on this year with Bad Company shows and with the Free Spirit tour, so I've got my hands full.
Do you find is it satisfying for you to be able to do Bad Company, your solo shows, and combine? Is it very satisfying to be able to do both?
Well, yeah, it is actually. I like to put a show together. I mean, I love putting a show together. Is a little bit like writing songs, but instead of chord shapes, you're using songs to create moods and to build on.
Right.
You have to open strong. You have to draw the audience in. It's good if the audience participate in something that you do. It's a whole magic carpet ride, and right. Every show is different, and it gets really different when I switch from Bad Company to Free Spirit. For instance.
Yeah. The first time I saw one of your solo shows, it was in 2011. You played a biker fest out here in Mesa, Arizona, and just the wealth of material you played. You touched on Free, you touched on Bad Company, of course, and I was just amazed at the depth of the material. And you brought the house down, so
Thank
it
you.
was a good time.
That's great. Well, that's why we're there. You know, we're there to connect, and we're there for everyone else to connect with each other. You know, it's all about a feel good evening. It really is. Whatever you do, it's got to be that, and it's got to hit the spot and take everybody higher, if you like. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think the appeal of Bad Company in general is the sort of less is more approach musically? Do you think that's probably the appeal why Bad Company has lasted so long?
Oh, I definitely do. Yeah, I mean, we learned that from blues. I mean, there's good blues and there's some not so good blues. Not all blues is great. I don't say that, but I mean the best blues. It's like there's a conversation going on between the musicians, and I really like that. You know, the Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, you know, John Lee Hooker, and they just have a way of connecting to your heart and soul. You know, I can't really explain it. It's just something that's there, and we picked up on that a long time ago. You've got to leave space, I think, for the listener to step inside the music. If it's all a wall of diddler 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 diddler, it's like I switch off at that point. You know, It's got to have, you know, it's got to have drama and movement and draw you in, and so you feel part of the music. And I think you do need space and dynamics in the songs to achieve that.
Right. How do you? Today, how do you approach your writing today as opposed to maybe 10 years ago?
Oh, well, you know, 10 years ago, I was writing more, I think, because I was writing about, I was part of a very exciting wave, you know, and it's not that easy to write new songs. You're almost competing with yourself after a while because there's such a wealth of material behind you that everything you do in the future is like going to be compared to that.
Right.
So, but you know, that's what I aim for, is a kind of, you know, simple message that delivers something that means something to a lot of people. Like, baby, when I think about you, you know, I think about love. That's very simple, but it's very, very far-reaching, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the universal appeal of Bad Company is
yeah.
Speaking with Paul Rodgers from Bad Company, and just to remind our viewers, Bad Company will be playing with Lynyrd Skynyrd on Friday, May 18th at Auction Pavilion. Tickets are going fast, and you can get them at livenation.com. Paul, what would you say that the highlight of the last, or say two highlights of the last since 2000 have been for you?
I've had so many highlights, man. Playing down in Memphis with the Reverend Charles Hodges and all the guys down there who played with Albert King and who played with Isaac Hayes, and doing that album, the Royal Sessions, was a real like amazing thing for me. So that was a highlight of my life. Actually, playing the Free Spirit tour in the UK was a series of highlights.
Right.
Everything's a highlight, actually, you know.
Yeah, and I specifically wanted to start with the 2000s, like I said, and see going forward like that, because your appeal is just so universal, and you pride yourself on stage. You just deliver 100%. And what do you do to keep your voice in shape all these years?
Oh, I do a lot of things. I mean, I warm up. The way I warm up is I meditate and I go like that, and then I build that up to and I think of John Lee Hooker, and I think of Otis Redding, and I do, you know, lots of teas and things like that, you know. There's a lot of things. Deep breathing.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, just go ahead and wind this down. Paul, I appreciate your time. Like I said, is there anything you want to say to your fans? Anything you want to talk about to conclude the interview?
Well, I can't wait to be out there in Phoenix, see you at the show. I really look forward to seeing my mates Lynyrd Skynyrd and playing together, because we love those guys, and it's going to be a fantastic evening, as ever.
Sounds good. Hey, Paul, why don't we go ahead and if you let us know to wind us down, what was it like making the video for Radioactive with the Firm? And we'll play it immediately following this interview.
Well, making that video was pretty awesome, because I was playing with Jimmy Page, and we try to recreate this very sweaty club, if I remember it rightly. Mm-hmm. And Les Paul, you might notice Les Paul is the barman, so look out for him. He's cleaning the club.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, that was. I remember when the Firm came. You guys came and did a tour here at a place called ASU Activity Center, and there was a long shot. I remember kids in school coming with their Firm T-shirts and saying, "Page and Rodgers on the same bill" was just amazing.
Thank you.
So
that's great.
All righty, Paul, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure and honor to speak to you, and let all the guys know. And one thing, will Mick Ralphs be on the show here at Auction? I know he had taken a break for the last tour you played with Joe Walsh. Is Mick Ralphs back in the band now?
Well, Mick Ralphs is always in the band, mm-hmm. But you see, the thing is, he did have a stroke, and so he's not really capable. He's recovering. And gotcha. God bless him. And we keep in touch all the time. And he's still got his sense of humor. But no, he's not. He won't be playing with us. But he's always in the band,
Right. Well, I wish him the best. And from all of us at 38IZ, we wish him good health.
Thank you. And you too. All the very best. Cheers.
All right. We'll see you, Paul. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.